to talk about why some cultural phenomena, why some culture is perceived as posh. Because the English National Opera is very accessible. So the obvious answer to that question, because it's so expensive, James, that's not relevant here. That's actually wrong here. I think you can go, 15 quid, I know it's still a lot of money to some people, but it's about the price of a cinema ticket in the West End. So if you can afford to go to the cinema, then with the English National Opera being in Covent Garden, you can afford to go to the opera. Shakespeare's plays were full of groundlings, as they were called. You know, people that someone with a certain worldview might call plebs. People who were not posh would go to Shakespeare's plays. Mozart was hugely popular with hoi polloi, as the Greeks would say. This idea that, and I think it's English, maybe British, but definitely English. This idea that there's something posh about culture really upsets me. It really upsets me because the liberating nature of a beautiful piece of art, whether it's a music, whether it's paint on canvas, whether it's a poem, whether it's a book, or whether it's a play, plays that I first plugged into as a kid, it's so immensely important to your mental health. The simple ability to step outside your own brain. It's meditative. It's quasi-religious. It's an ability to step outside the quotidian, the daily grind, to actually rise above the minutiae of your daily existence and soar into uncharted territory. It is a thing of absolute beauty. And if you are laughing at me now, which I completely respect, if you are laughing at me now, that is tragic, because it means you don't know what I'm talking about, which means you've never had that experience, which means you've never been lucky enough to have a teacher or a parent or a friend or an accidental encounter with a radio and some music come. You've never had that experience. Maybe some people get it at the football, actually, at an amazing sporting event, which can be a mixture of religious and theatrical, when you feel yourself soaring. When Kidderminster Harriers went 1-0 up against West Ham in the FA Cup last season, I had a spiritual experience. But I've had that experience in theatres, and I've had that experience in my own home, listening to a certain piece of music or reading a book. And why in this country are the words I have just said in any way emblematic of something that is linked to social class? Why? I do not get it. I do not get it at all. If you read The Ragged-Trousered Philanthropist, if my own maternal grandfather was still alive, they would share with you stories of cultural enrichment and cultural encounters, whether it's playing a classical music instrument or having the complete works of William Shakespeare in the house. The idea that these things are middle class or posh is a national tragedy, a genuine national tragedy. And I think there's a strand of conservative thought that wants to make it worse, that somehow wants to make it elite, more elite, and I don't understand why. And oddly, I think of Billy Elliot. I think of the power of that film, which of course became a stage musical. Which way round was it? What came first, the film or the stage musical? I forget. It doesn't matter. I think of that story, that incredible story about a lad from a deprived community discovering the transformative nature of art, in his case ballet dancing. And somehow that film touched everybody. It didn't just touch people who like ballet. It was like the best ever backstory on a national TV talent show. And that proves that I'm right. It proves that somewhere deep inside us, we all get it. We all understand the transformative nature of culture and art, whether it's high, middle brow or low. We all get it, because otherwise Billy Elliot wouldn't have been one of the most successful films of the last 20 years. Wouldn't be a byword now for breaking down class barriers that are erected around certain cultural pastimes and certain cultural events. Why shouldn't a lad from a deprived mining community go on to dance at the Royal Ballet? Why the hell shouldn't he? And why shouldn't kids from his part of the country enjoy watching ballet? or listening to opera, watching opera, or going to the theatre, or reading books. I move now from Billy Elliot to Jamie Oliver, because when Jamie Oliver talks about good eating and healthy food and delicious meals, he gets accused. A publican's son from Essex gets accused of pandering to middle-class mores.